Megyn Kelly's claim that Chinese factories have completely halted production for Hermes and Louis Vuitton sent shockwaves through the fashion world. Within hours of her broadcast, clips amassed over 5 million views on social media platforms, and remark factory shutdown trended globally. Key retailers reported immediate inventory gaps. Paris boutiques saw their weekly Hermes allocations slashed by 70%, while New York area Louis Vuitton stores noted a 60% drop in scheduled deliveries.
This is what he's announcing today. He has said that the reciprocal tariff, this is Scott Besson who announced it, the reciprocal tariff on China, where we jacked ours up to 125 and then they jacked theirs up on us to 125 for all goods, is now going to 10%.
Hermes, you guys, it's time to show off your factories. No, I don't want to wait to go on YouTube and watch a beautiful documentary on. Show them off right here on TikTok. Let the world see. Okay, get like China. You got to be ghetto about it. Just let people know.
Collectors who placed deposits months ago for limited edition Birkin and Kelly models received cancellation notices, sparking outrage on forums like PurseForum and TheRealReal. Even renowned auction houses such as Christie's and Sotheby's prepared for an influx of unmade items, prepaid lots that never left the workshops, threatening the entire secondary market stability. All of this underscores a stark reality.
U.S. said the reductions will last for 90 days while the talks continue.
These are pieces of artwork. These artisans train years and years to make one of these bags.
Fabrice is doing the last stitching on a Kelly bag. A Kelly takes around 13 hours to be made, depending on the materials that we make it. Our artisans, they need to do 4 years of training to be able to manufacture a Kelly bag.
While Hermes says, made in China, does it feel cheaper? No, that's not a quality issue. It's luxury brand washing.
When manufacturing partners pull the plug, not even the richest. Brands can shield themselves from a sudden collapse of global supply chains. Deep within Guangdong's industrial parks, senior factory directors disclosed how escalating input costs collided with rigid brand demands. In the span of 1 year, raw leather costs rose by 40% due to global hide shortages. Premium hardware, buckles, clasps, and rivets jumped 60% as metal suppliers passed on energy price hikes.
So it's higher. We're definitely charging more for Chinese goods to come into this country.
It starts with 30 distinct cuts of leather and can take 20 hours to complete, 4 hours for just the handle. Put the finishing touches on a Kelly, the most difficult bag to build. Artisans rely on their training and muscle memory to make every bag.
This is why this bag from our factory only costs you 1,000 USD.
Have y'all seen that TikTok by the Chinese guy exposing how luxury goods are actually made? The only real difference? China ships the products to Europe, slaps on a made in France or made in Italy label, and boom, luxury? It's ridiculous. And
electricity surcharges added another 15% to overhead. Despite these increases, Hermes and LV maintained retail price inflation at 5 to 10% annually, preserving profit margins north of 70%. A factory manager lamented, "We were stitching for pennies compared to what they were charging customers."
But Besant says the consensus as the U.S. met with China over the weekend was that we will reach a fuller trade agreement that, quote, neither side wants a decoupling.
When we requested even a modest 10% contract bump to cover costs, negotiations stalled, so we stopped production. No half measures. That decisive action was not a simple slowdown. It was a factory-wide blackout, instantly freezing the creation of hundreds of thousands of luxury goods. As authentic production lines ground to a halt, social media became the battleground for a seismic shift in consumer behavior.
It's like it had to happen. The markets were just too bad, the bond market in particular.
This Himalaya Vuitton from boutique cost you $66,000 US. But do you know what the real cost from our factory? Let me show you the numbers. First, the leather. This Himalaya Vuitton leather is supplied by the company HCP from front. And one piece of this Himalaya leather costs 1,300. One for the front, one for the back, and another one on the two sides. So 3 pieces is 3,900. Interior lining is imported lambskin, and the cost is about $200 US. Also, exactly the same thread. 25. The hardware is set with diamonds, $700. Coating oil, the cost is $30. And the zipper, $350. And at last, so the cost for this 30-year experienced artisan's labor and skills is $700 US. Same material from the same supplier for those boutique bags by our factory is $6,000.
TikTok creators flooded feeds under the hashtag Sharks Luxury Bags, posting side-by-side comparisons of genuine Hermes and Louis Vuitton pieces next to so-called Hermes grade dupes, selling for as little as $150. One of the earliest viral clips juxtaposed a $15,000 Birkin with a $150 replica, clocking 12 million views in just 48 hours. A figure that underscored Gen Z and millennial audiences' voracious appetite for affordability. Luxury brand purists recoiled as influencers demonstrated near-identical saddle stitching, hardware, engravings, and leather grain, all without any of the usual paperwork. No authenticity cards, no serial number receipts, just a plain shipping box and a bargain basement price tag. Business Insider reports that Louis Vuitton and Hermes consistently top dupe discussions, with Gen Z consumers viewing replicas far more positively than older shoppers, according to data from Plot Analytics. Industry analysis shows that dupe-related content has now surpassed 10 billion views across social platforms, signaling a full-blown crisis of trust in luxury brand. Vogue Business notes that this dupe culture has outpaced traditional counterfeits by offering high-quality imitators from the same factories and materials, minus the hefty middleman markups, making the quality gap between real and fake nearly imperceptible. On Reddit forums, consumers vent their frustration. If I can get a bag that looks identical for 1% of the price, why bother with authenticity? Reads one top-voted comment. Analysts at Istituto Marangoni warn that these attitudes could permanently erode luxury's mystique, forcing brands to redefine exclusivity through transparent pricing or hyper-limited artisan runs rather than steep markups alone. Ultimately, the dupe economy has exposed an uncomfortable truth. When the line between real and fake blurs, the carefully curated aura of exclusivity evaporates, leaving even the most storied fashion houses scrambling to restore consumer trust in a market now flooded with indistinguishable alternatives. Sneakerheads, brace yourselves. Nike's heavy dependence on Chinese and Southeast Asian factories is morphing into its most glaring vulnerability. Across Reddit's ER sneakers, dozens of threads chronicle canceled Jordan 1 pre-orders, with buyers checking tracking numbers only to find label created and nothing more. One user reports, "Order confirmed in March, still no shipping email," echoing scores of frustrated fans. Meanwhile, retail analysts flagged a 25% drop in preseason Asia-Pacific orders for Nike in Q2 2025, alarming for a brand built on just-in-time logistics. With half of Nike's footwear now made in Vietnam and significant output in China, that decline signals weakening factory commitments as producers hedge against shipping bottlenecks and tariff pressures. Quality control issues have surged in tandem. Internal audits unearthed a 15% spike in defective seams, misaligned stitching, and stray glue marks on limited edition runs, prompting abrupt production pauses on marquee models. Sneaker YouTubers have documented glue stains on purportedly new pairs, driving home that these aren't counterfeit knockoffs, but authentic lines suffering corner cutting under cost pressures. Behind closed doors, Nike is facing hardball demands from factory owners. Sources reveal suppliers are insisting on up to 20% higher per unit fees to offset surging labor expenses, energy costs, and compliance costs tied to new U.S. import tariffs. With China's vast capacity either renegotiated at punishing rates or withdrawn entirely, Nike confronts skyrocketing production costs, postponed drop calendars, and the chilling reality that hyped releases may simply vanish, leaving customers and resellers clutching empty order confirmations. This upheaval has sent shockwaves through luxury and sportswear alike. Veteran buyers who once bowed to brand diktats now see a reckoning. Suppliers hold the reins. One anonymous fashion CEO confessed, "If factories can withhold production, they hold the power." A stunning reversal of decades-old dynamics. Sustainability advocates cheer this as a potential turning point toward fairer wages and greater cost transparency, arguing that brands must share real input cost data with consumers. Conversely, skeptics warn of a repeat cycle. Corporations will simply relocate to lower-wage hubs, Bangladesh, Vietnam, even parts of Eastern Europe, only to squeeze those workforces next. Behind closed doors, boardrooms debate whether to absorb higher manufacturing costs for brand integrity or chase the cheapest alternative, risking the same supplier backlash down the line. Either way, the traditional host-parasite model, in which brands feast on supplier margins, is crumbling under its own weight. Get ready for a seismic shift in how you shop and what you pay. Imagine this. You placed an order for that elusive Kelly bag last year, counting down the days until it arrives. Now, your estimated delivery has slid from 12 months to 3 years, and whispers on luxury forums suggest you might never see it at the original price. Meanwhile, sneakerheads who pre-ordered a pair of Air Jordans for release this fall are scrambling to find them on the resale market, if they can even locate a pair. When they do, those same Jordans that retailed for $200 are now commanding $400, $500, thanks to dwindling supply and sky-high demand. Local boutiques, your neighborhood havens for exclusive drops, face an even bleaker fate, with shipments evaporating. Without notice, several have already announced temporary closures, citing inventory reallocation and unforeseen supplier constraints. In Milan's Brera district, 2 multi-brand stores shuttered overnight, their back in 2 days signs now a cruel joke for loyal customers. In New York's Soho, pop-up shops that once thrived on flash releases warn they may not reopen if the supply chain doesn't normalize soon. On resale platforms like StockX and GOAT, the floodgates are about to burst. Anticipate a wave of prepaid undelivered orders hitting the market as collectors dump items they'll never receive, driving resale prices through the roof. Analysts predict a 30-50% surge on sought-after pieces once tied to factory production, as supply chains stay constricted. Waitlists will morph into digital lotteries. You'll enter your email and cross your fingers, praying for a single notification that might arrive months or years later. Brands will soothe investors and customers with slick PR. We're executing strategic realignment, they'll say, focusing on quality prioritization over volume. But beneath that polished veneer, the truth is unmistakable. The established order of endless product drops and instant gratification is crumbling. Shoppers will feel it in their wallets, higher prices, fewer options, and in their patience, longer waits, hopes, empty wish lists. If you thought luxury and hype culture was unpredictable before, buckle up. The squeeze is only just beginning. Digital influencers and everyday consumers alike ignited a wildfire of outrage against Hermes and Louis Vuitton, accusing the houses of hiding behind exclusivity, while factory workers bore the cost. TikTok exploded with videos under Tariffs fashion revolution and Not Your Bag Gate. Influencers dramatically cutting up their Hermes scarves, burning Louis Vuitton wallets, and posting empty closing wardrobe challenges that racked up tens of millions of views. On Instagram, stylists posted before and after shots of barren boutique shelves, tagging brand accounts with pleas for transparency. When Paris Fashion Week kicked off, front-row celebrities and press corps peppered brand representatives with questions about supply chain ethics. In Milan, LVMH executives faced an impromptu protest, led by Fashion Revolution activists outside the Dior showroom. Even Vogue Business noted suppliers drowning in data requests as brands scrambled to prove compliance with emerging transparency frameworks. The message was unmistakable. Social media can topple even the most untouchable. Houses and consumers demand proof, not promises. With physical production grinding to a halt, Hermes and Louis Vuitton doubled down on the digital frontier. Hermes quietly filed suit against NFT artist Mason Rothschild for his Meta Birkins project. 100 faux fur Birkin NFTs that sold for up to 6 figures, claiming trademark infringement and dilution. The New York jury agreed, awarding Hermes $133K in damages, underscoring that the real world still stands above the wild NFT West. Meanwhile, Hermes announced a virtual Birkin NFT drop, pitching it as an eco-friendly alternative, with zero environmental impact, while Louis Vuitton teased a full VR runway show in a bespoke metaverse space. Critics panned these moves as luxury fantasy, arguing they amount to selling pixels to recoup lost margins without crafting a single seam. The business of fashion warned that as brands chase digital gold, they risk alienating loyal customers who prize tangible craftsmanship over blockchain. As the crisis mounts, regulators are closing in. In Brussels and Washington, lawmakers are drafting legislation to enforce supply chain transparency that would compel brands to disclose every tier of their manufacturing networks, from raw material farms to final. The European Parliament's Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD, and the U.S. discussion around a similar Forced Labor Disclosure Act both target hidden abuses, requiring proof of ethical sourcing and punitive fines for non-compliance. Last week, the Milan prefecture introduced a voluntary memorandum of understanding to combat exploitation in Italian fashion supply chains, but critics warn that without legal teeth, it amounts to window dressing. Meanwhile, Trust Trace's new compliance canvas, launched at the Global Fashion Summit, highlights how inconsistent data demands are drowning suppliers and calls for harmonized standards across 16 global regulations. Companies now face the real prospect of CEOs being hauled before congressional and parliamentary hearings, not to celebrate creativity, but to answer for every invisible hand that sews their logo. This saga reveals an unstoppable truth. Power in fashion no longer resides solely in glossy ad campaigns or celebrity endorsements. It lies in the supply chains beneath the surface. When factory owners, consumers, and regulators unite, even the loftiest brands must reckon with accountability. The question now is whether Hermes, Louis Vuitton, and Nike will embrace a new era of genuine transparency or double down on digital illusions and risk losing the very authenticity they claim to uphold. Share your thoughts below. Is this the collapse of old-school luxury or the dawn of a more ethical fashion era?